Hi, my name is Kazim Adegwega, and I'd like to welcome you to Module 10 of the Kazim Can Teach NCTA Cloud Technologies course. Here we're going to be looking at integrating SaaS solutions. Now, once an organization has selected the SaaS solution it wishes to use, the challenge then becomes getting those different SaaS solutions from those different vendors to communicate and share data. So here in this module, we're going to learn how to integrate SaaS solution. So these are the two objectives that we're going to be covering in this module: determining business need for SaaS integration, and we'll wrap things up with evaluating integration options. So before SaaS solution can be integrated, you must first determine what your business needs are first of all, and then your business needs that will drive the integration. That will give you an idea of whose data must be shared among SaaS solution. So let's begin with traditional integration model. With the traditional integration model, you will notice that everything is housed behind your firewall. Your infrastructure, your servers, your data, your application, etc. are all on-prem, right? And you have total control, over the security, over the administrative tasks, the maintenance, etc. Within those your servers, your data that is all behind your firewall. Now, this therefore means that everything can talk to each other without having to make any configuration changes, right? So good and good. This is what your traditional integration model looks like. So here, you don't have much to worry about with regards to integration. So you simply can integrate all of these services running on-prem the way you wish, because you have total control over them. So now let's take a look at how integration is done using the SaaS model, right? So when you migrate those your applications to the cloud, or you migrate your on-prem solution to the cloud, most of the components are no longer in-house behind your firewall. So here, one of the major concern is data security, right? And after data security, you have it followed by how to integrate your traditional solution with a new cloud solution. Your traditional solution that we've looked at earlier. How do you now integrate them with your new cloud software as a service solution? So because your software and platform, your infrastructure with the cloud is hosted somewhere else, it's not within your own control, it's not within your own infrastructure, it means that you will need to ensure that everything can communicate securely over the internet. So there are a number of things that you need to look at here when you're integrating your on-prem with your SaaS model. So you need to look at software integration, for instance. With the traditional software, integration means combining features or two separate software systems into one. That's what integration literally means. So with the cloud SaaS, it also means combining your on-prem software with your own new cloud software to ensure that data flows as expected between your on-prem and the cloud. And this may take place through the use of API, application programming interface. Now, software integration is not the only thing you need to worry about. So you also need to think about data integration, right? So depending on where your SaaS solutions are located, you may have data stored in separate locations in the cloud, and you may even have data on-prem too as well. So data integration would allow you to combine all the separate information into something meaningful and important to your business, right? So you probably are looking to integrate your on-prem data with the one that you have with your new SaaS solution, right? Another thing to also worry about is authentication, right? So with the possibility that you will be running several separate systems. So it is important that you make their use as seamless as possible, most especially to your users. And one way of doing that is by setting up what is known as SSO, single sign-on, right? So single sign-on is an authentication process that allows the users to access multiple applications with one set of login credentials, right? So you present one login credentials, and that same login, you can use it to have access to your email, you can use it to have access to your SharePoint, you can use it to have access to your Skype for Business, and any other line of business application that you might have sitting on your network, coupled with the the cloud too as well. So hence, SSO will allow users to log in once, for the set of cloud services that they have, and also for their on-prem line of business applications. Now, all this integration that we've made mention of, you have options, you have ways of going about them. So you can choose to automate them, or you can choose to go with manual integration, right? So depending on how much data you have and how distributed your data you want to choose between using built-in integration or scripted or even manual integration, right? So what's the differences now, between these integration options that we have? When I say built-in integration, it means that some of those vendors, some of those cloud vendors already come with apps and services built into the solution that they are offering to you, and you can just simply leverage on those built-in migration tools or built-in solution that comes with those software as a service solution. Another way is by automating it, right? So this involves running some kind of script, leveraging on script to make configuration changes. So this really can save you a lot of time, right? A good example will be if I need to create users. I've just been set up for Office 365, or your organization is just been set up for Office 365. So obviously you need to have users consume the service, right? So you're going to need to create users up in O365. So you can decide to do so manually, by creating users one after the next, or you can automate the process, right, by using script to automate the creation of those users account. That's prior to setting up Active Directory synchronization. Because you can install a tool called AD Connect that will automatically take those users that you have on-prem on your AD on-prem into the cloud, right, into Windows Azure in the cloud, right. And lastly, we have manual, right? So you can go about it manually. You manually do your integration. So manual process is a scenario, a situation where an admin configures any setting that are required to enable the integration, right? So those are the common options that you have. And just to show you what this looks like, so if I can log into my O365 portal here. As you can see, this is my O365 portal. If I come under users and active users, so right now it's trying to load those users that I've created up in O365. So you get the picture here. So if I need to add the user, I can decide to click on add the user to manually add those users. But if this looks like it's going to take your time, you have a lot of users to create, then it won't be a good option for you to create users one after the other. So you can leverage on scripts, right? So as you can see here, I have I can do Active Directory synchronization or simply import multiple users. So the way you import multiple users is via scripts. So you need to have prepared the script that will allow you or enable you to import multiple users at the same time, right? So next, let's take a look at some guidelines here for determining integration need for SaaS software, right? One, you need to ensure that your SaaS solution can communicate securely across your firewall with internal networks, right? So which is something that is really very key. I mean, you have to worry about how your users are going to connect to the SaaS application, how your internal users and your external users are both going to connect, right? All right, so I've also mentioned this earlier, ensures that data flows as needed between on-prem and your cloud applications, right? You need to maintain the connection and the data exchange with the proper level of security. So security is something that you really don't want to joke about. Have the right type of connection to accommodate the volume of data that you need between the two systems. So it might involve you, it might require you to scale up or upgrade your bandwidth, so that it can support the amount of data that you're looking to exchange between those two systems. So you also need to look at orchestrating data flow to get the right data to the right system at the right time, right? Consider using single sign-on. So I also mentioned this so that your users don't complain of having to provide multiple login to multiple line of business application, so because the major concern that your users are going to raise since is the same user account. So can't they just log in one time, and once they've logged in, that same credentials can be used to gain access to all of their other line of business application? So to make that happen, there might be a need for you to set up single sign-on, right? Consider and by the way, how you set up single sign-on, there are a number of providers that you can use to set up single sign-on. So if you're looking to do it the Microsoft way, then you need to look at setting up federation service, right? Consider how you want to implement integration. So I also mentioned this earlier, right? So would you like to do this manually, or would you like to script the process to automate the process? So it is always better for you to automate it, so if you find that you are going to be repeating that particular task, so it is better for you to automate it, so that in the future you can just simply leverage on the script to do the same thing, as opposed to doing the same task manually over and over again. And this really will come in handy when you have bulky tasks to perform. So I mean, imagine having to create 200 users. So would you rather do it one after the other, or you get an Excel spreadsheet that contains all of your users and leverage on PowerShell scripts that can help you make the magic happen? So I think the latter option, the latter option is better, right? And finally, you need to investigate third-party integration solution. So some built-in integration solution might not necessarily fit your need. So you might need to look at investing on some third-party integration tools, to better handle it for you. An example will still be up on my O365 portal. If I come to settings, and I come to services and add-ins. So under services and add-ins, Microsoft here, they've made available a number of tools, right, that we can use to make some of the that we can use to do certain things up in the O365 portal. So if you're looking to export, for instance, maybe emails from some third-party systems, you can do that with some of the already existing tools that they have. Good. So now I've been able to load it. So as you can see it here, if I need to leverage on multi-factor authentication, so you can see that there's a built-in tool up in O365 that we can use to turn on and enable multi-factor authentication. So the list just goes on and on, right? So whichever provider that you've chosen to go with for your software as a service solution, sometimes some of those built-in, some of those integrated tools might not serve your need the way you want them to. So in that case, then you might need to look at some other third party. But if those other third party solutions are going to be costing you a ham and a leg, then maybe you want to make do with what the software as a service provider gives you. Let's look at common SaaS implementation, common SaaS integration point, right? So now, once business requirements for integration have been identified, that is, once you've identified your requirement for integration, then you as a cloud technologist will need to then determine the best approach to achieve this integration. So here in this last lap of this module, it's a very short module, as you can see here. We're almost running out the slide here. So in this last lap, we're going to learn how to evaluate the integration options, right? So some of the common ways that SaaS, software as a service applications, are integrated with each other are as follows. You have storage, you have data, and you have security, right? So for storage, because of the convenience that cloud storage offers, it is most of the time one of the first things that businesses turn to for software as a service solution, right? So if you decide to go with a cloud storage, it means that you will need to focus on integrating your local storage and cloud storage together, right? So that's a no-brainer. So once you're choosing to go with the cloud storage, it might be your Azure storage, it might be from Google, your Google Drive, your Google Drive, maybe OneDrive, your Dropbox, so on and so forth. So you need to look at how you can now integrate your on-prem storage with your cloud storage, because sometimes the information that your users need might be up there in the cloud. So how easy is it going to be for your internal users and your external users to have access to those data up in the cloud? So it's no big deal to access those data on-prem, except they have some permission restrictions. But once you now have some information now being transferred into the cloud because you've decided to integrate cloud storage, with your cloud solution, then you need to, figure it out. How seamless is it going to be? Consider it. How both your internal users and your external users will have access to their data in the cloud. Now, note that there are several options on how you can get data into the cloud. One way of getting information into the cloud, that is, if your users now need to save their information up in the cloud, they can decide to put up the information in the cloud directly, right? Maybe if they have a very so that's one way to go about it, right? So direct connection, copying via a very fast connection, via a very fast link. So that's directly into the cloud. Most of the time, most of this provider will give you access to dashboard on how you can even do import and export, right? So if that's what you want to do, you have some information you need to import to the provider's platform, storage platform. You can do that via some APIs. Some of the providers will make available APIs that you can use to get that done, or even dashboards, right, to do your import and your export if you need to export data from the cloud to your local system. So that's another option that you have. Another option is also for you to set up a recurring sync, right, to keep both your local data sync up with what you have in the cloud, right? If any one of you have used Google Drive or OneDrive for Business, or even Dropbox in the past, so you should have an idea of that, of how this works. And also in our previous modules, I think I've showed this to you. I demo it using OneDrive for Business. So I have installed OneDrive for Business app on my computer. As you can see here, this is OneDrive. So anytime I want to put information in my OneDrive in the cloud, so all I need to do is dump them here. So even when I don't have internet connectivity, once internet connectivity is restored, then there's going to be a sync, so you simply pushes up the information that I have locally saved here on my computer into the cloud. And likewise, when I have information, let's say I'm using my phone to drop those information in my OneDrive account, on the internet up on O365. So once there's connectivity on my local computer as well, those information that I have newly generated, that I have newly stored in OneDrive in the cloud, will also be synced up to my local computer, right? Good. So that will be it for storage. Next, let's take a look at data. Now, when you have your data up in the cloud, surely you need a way to access that data, right? And this may require you to integrate a local application or service to point to the data that you have in the cloud, right? Right. So you may also connect to it by import and export, right? When you need to get to the data. So we talked about that earlier as well. And I appreciate the fact that most of the cloud storage providers, you have providers like Rackspace, there's Google Drive in the business, there's Amazon Web Services S3, there's Azure, OneDrive for business. So most of them will provide cloud-based storage that you can use to access both on-prem and SaaS applications, right? And lastly, let's take a look at security. Let's talk about security. When talking about security, you need to approach it using a layered approach, right? That is onion approach. So it should be layer after layer of security that is going to get the job done here, to ensure that your data and other services are private and then are very, very secure, right? So the measure that you can take here can include things like two-factor authentication, right? So two-factor authentication will help you ensure that only those that are supposed to have access to your data have access to them, right? Another thing you can look at for security is considering hardened encryption, right, at various level. Now you can look at including disk and file level encryption. If you have some database system running in the cloud, then enable database encryption too, right? So you can even enable encryption also at the virtual machine level, right, at the highest level. So encryption, simply put, helps you ensure that your data is secure and is kept private. Good and good. So let's wrap things up with guidelines for integrating SaaS solution. Here are some of the guidelines for you. Plan how your on-premises and SaaS application will store and access data, right? So consider how users, will have access to the data in the cloud, both your internal users and your external users, right? So we also mentioned encryption. So look at encryption too as well as way of protecting your information. And when we talk about encryption, don't just turn on encryption at the virtual machine level, right? So you want to make sure that you turn on encryption in multiple places, right? Security should be a layered approach. So one of the ways of doing security is by turning on encryption, for your files, your data, right? And consider using two-factor authentication. So that simply makes your system, it makes your data a lot more secure, right? So you don't want users to just gain access to their system by simply typing in their username and password. So that won't be sufficient, right? So because what happens if the password of one of your users has been cracked, right? So when they type in their username and password, you want a notification system, in place. You want maybe like something like text messaging. You should send them an SMS, a code, a one use pin, to their mobile phone, and then before they can access that service in the cloud, that SaaS solution or that SaaS line of business application running in the cloud, they will then need to type in that one-time PIN, right, for them to be able to gain access. So that's an example of how two-factor authentication works. And make sure you review the provider SLA to make sure, just really ensure that your concerns are being addressed. So if you have any other additional concern that I've not raised here, then be sure to put pen to paper, and when you are approaching the cloud provider, or when those software as a service provider are talking to you, you want to make sure that they have systems in place to mitigate some of the challenges, some of your concerns, right? And lastly, consider adding cloud policy to ensure that the employee use the cloud service that are known and then are approved. So this will reduce the possibility of exposing sensitive data, right? So this is it for this module. So to wrap up, in this module we have determined business need for integrating software as a service solution, and we've also evaluated the integration option that we have. So I hope that this has been informative for you, and I would like to thank you for viewing. So I'll see you in the next module.